On October 18, 1989, in West Branch, Iowa, Gerald Ford, the 38th President of the United States, shared history with students from across Iowa. The visit was part of a conference on the role of former presidents in American society, sponsored by the Herbert Hoover Library and Museum and the Gerald Ford Library and Museum. Here's how these students took advantage of a rare learning opportunity.
Thank you very, very much. It's a very high honor and a very great privilege for me to come to West Branch and to participate in this conference, which is being held here at the Hoover facilities.
Mr. Ford, what advice would you give a young lady wanting to become President of the United States?
Well, I hope we do have a young lady at some point become President of the United States. I can tell you how I think it will happen, because it won't happen in the normal course of events. Either the Republican or Democrat political party will nominate a man for president and a woman for vice president, and the woman and man will win. So you'll end up with a president, a male, and a vice president, a female. And in that term of office of the president will die, and the woman will become president under the law or Constitution. And
All right, guys, welcome back. And as you saw in this beginning of this video, I'm going to be talking about this riddle from Gerald Ford when he gave that speech at the Herbert Hoover Library talking about the first woman president. Now, if you're new to this channel, on this channel, I use the code of gematria, which you guys saw in my very last slide. And I'm going to use this code, this numerical code, to show you how this number 85 is tied to this whole riddle and how it goes much deeper than what you would ever imagine. And this obviously ties to, John F. Kennedy. It ties to Gerald Ford. It ties to all these presidents that are involved in this riddle. And hopefully, by the end of this video, you guys will see just how much of a script this actually is. So without any further ado, let's first go to this post from November 19th, 2021. This is when Kamala Harris took over and became the first woman with presidential power for 85 minutes. Okay, 85 minutes, guys. This is when Joe Biden was temporarily under anesthesia for a routine colonoscopy. So this 85 number, okay, and there's a reason why they chose 85 minutes, and I'm going to show you how this is all tied to this ritual and how this ritual has been in place for many years. So just remember that, guys. Kamala was already the first woman with presidential power for 85 minutes. I told you that Gerald Ford was basically the one who, if we go and we type him in, his real name was, and again, he was born in Omaha, Nebraska, which is, I'm going to show you in a minute how that's tied to this. But if we go to Gerald Ford, as I showed you guys in the beginning slides, his real name, if you click on it, his real name, he was born with the name Leslie Lynch King Jr., okay? Leslie Lynch King Jr. And he gives this speech about the first woman president. And he gives this speech, 2 days before Kamala Harris's 25th birthday. And he does it in the Herbert Hoover Library, where Herbert Hoover was born the exact same day Kamala Harris, or he died the exact same day Kamala Harris was born. And on top of that, if you type in his real original name, let's go over the gematria, guys. And you're going to see that his real name, his given name, Leslie Lynch King Jr. equals 85. So I just showed you that Kamala Harris, the woman that he foreshadowed in his speech in 1989, his name equals 85, and Kamala Harris became the first woman with presidential power, and she did it for 85 minutes, just like his name equals 85. Now, this goes back to the Ford Motor Company because Gerald Ford eventually changed his name to Ford, which is tied to the name Ford, which was also tied to Abraham Lincoln in Ford's Theater, and also JFK in the Ford Lincoln. Okay, and him changing his name to Ford was obviously very ritualistic in the fact that he was the 38th president, and in gematria, the word murder equals 38, and he was the 38th president, and he was tied to the Ford in the Ford's Theater for the death of Abraham Lincoln, and also the Ford Lincoln, which was tied to the death of JFK. And again, he had a big connection to Michigan. And I'm going to show you, he was raised in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and went to the University of Michigan, and he turned down offers to play for the Detroit Lions. And this is where I'm going to connect this Ford thing. Okay, because Ford Motor Company, we'll go to that for a second, was founded in Detroit, obviously, by Henry Ford. Okay, again, this Michigan connection. And it was founded in Dearborn, which is near Detroit. And anyways, connecting to Gerald Ford, how is this connected to this whole ritual, guys? Well, I showed you in the slides that WWE is having an event on 8/5 in Ford, the Ford Stadium, where the Detroit Lions play. And again, I told you that Gerald Ford was offered to play for the Detroit Lions. Okay, and again, let's go back to the gematria, but you're going to see that Leslie Lynch King Jr., his real given name, is a direct match to Ford Motor Company 85. Okay, Ford Motor Company 85, his name, Leslie Lynch King Jr. 85. Now, he grew up in Michigan, where Ford was founded, and he was offered to play for the Detroit Lions, where the current Lions play in Ford Field. Okay, and on 8/5, WWE is having an event, and I'm going to show you how I believe this is tied to something possibly coming before Kamala Harris and taking over for Joe Biden, and I'm thinking it's going to be August 9th. If you guys haven't watched my last video, please go back and watch that, where I gave you the initial reasoning why I believed that 8/9 was going to be the day. I don't believe it's going to happen on 8/5, guys. I believe it's going to happen on 8/9. and I'm going to show you why. But another thing to go over here, guys, that's absolutely a must know for this whole ritual is who is behind all this, guys. Well, who works for the Catholic Church and who is the current modern day Knights Templar? Well, that's the Society of Jesus. And the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, their logo is IHS, okay? And that stands for Isus Hominum Salvator, which means down here, guys, Isus Hominum Salvator stands for Jesus, Savior of Man, okay? And you spell it like this, Isus Hominum Salvator, and if you take it over the gematria, once again, guys, you get the 85 and the 266, just like Leslie Lynch King Jr. So, again, a big Jesuit ritual, guys, tied to the Jesuits and the IHS logo. Now, why is this 85 also tied to Christ and Jesus? Well, because Jesus was known as the Christ, which also equals 85. Do you see what I mean with this? 85 for the Christ and 85 for the motto of the Jesuits, Isus Hominum Salvator, which is a two-cipher match to Gerald Ford's given name and also a match to the Ford Motor Company, which again ties to this whole presidential thing that we've been decoding. So the 85 goes clearly through this, and let's pivot and let's talk about this Detroit Lions ritual. And in order for me to set the stage for this, guys, I need to talk about what happened earlier this year. And let me find that for you. So here we go. Earlier this year, all of you guys will probably remember, on January 2nd, there was a game between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Buffalo Bills. And in this game, Damar Hamlin, it was a huge story. Most of you probably know this. He was hit in the chest as he was trying to make a tackle, and it caused him to collapse on the field. Okay? And this ritual is tied to another ritual where a player collapsed on the field. And this guy's name was Chuck Hughes. Now, Chuck Hughes played for the Detroit Lions. He died in Detroit, okay? Chuck Hughes is known as the only player to die on the field during a game, okay, guys? He's the only player to die on the field. Not even Damar Hamlin, who collapsed earlier this year on the field, he did not die. But I want you to notice the number that hit Damar Hamlin. It's number 85. Okay, well, first of all, this 85 number ties to the National Football League, which equals 85 in the same cipher as Ford Motor Company, as Gerald Ford's real name, and as the Jesuit motto on their logo, Isus Hominum Salvator. Okay, and Damar Hamlin's birthday was March 24th. If you type that out, it equals 85 and 221 in the same ciphers as Ford Motor Company. Do you see this? 85, 221, 85, 221. I'm going to talk about this 221 number in just a moment, but we're going to stay focused on this 85. So Damar Hamlin's birthday, March 24th, equals 85. Now, he was hit and knocked out of the game by number 85, who was a Bengal, like a cat, guys. A big cat, number 85 Bengal, knocks out Damar Hamlin. Now, this is tied to the Jesuit logo. Why? Because the Jesuits logo, the saying Isus Hominum Salvator equals 85. And if you take a look at the Jesuit logo, it has 3 triclavian nails. Okay? 3 triclavian nails going into the center here. And this stands for Damar Hamlin, okay, and the Christ, right? Because Damar Hamlin's number was number 3. The 3 nails and the 85, which is the Jesuit Isus Hominum Salvator, when you decode it in gematria, as I showed you just right here, okay? So what a perfect ritual for number 85 to hit the number 3, representing the logo of the Jesuits, all right? Now, if that wasn't, even enough, we're going to take a look more at this Chuck Hughes, because this Chuck Hughes, his number was 85. I told you, he was the only player to die on the field, and he played for the Lions, okay? He played for the Lions. and he died on the field. And Damar Hamlin, who collapsed on the field, was hit by number 85. So do you guys see this ritual with the number 85 tying back to the Ford Motor Company, tying back to the presidents, okay? Tying back to Gerald Ford's given name, which equals 85, just like the Jesuit motto. And again, guys, you're going to notice another number that keeps coming up in these. And you're going to notice the 122 and the 221. But again, guys, remember, Christ equals 85. So again, this ritual with Damar Hamlin was a Christ ritual, okay? And Damar Hamlin, even afterwards, after he recovered and he returned at the Super Bowl this year, he was wearing a jacket with like a Christ on the back, but it wasn't like a good representation. So at any rate, guys, this 85 is huge. And this Chuck Hughes wore the number 85, and again, tied to Ford in Detroit, where he died on the field, okay? And it just gets even more crazy as we go through. So Chuck Hughes dies wearing the number 85. The Detroit Lions, okay? The Detroit Lions, are representative of. Now let's tie this to Kamala, okay? Kamala her middle name is Devi, Devi, Devi. And there is a god in the Indian culture, which is where Kamala's heritage is from, and Devi means goddess, okay? And there's a goddess who rides a lion. And just so we can, be clear, this is the Detroit Lions we're talking about, okay? And again, Damar Hamlin was hit by a tiger, all right? He was hit by a tiger, and he wore 85, and then and he collapsed. And then the other guy that collapsed was Chuck Hughes, who wore 85, and he was a lion. So you got the lion and the tiger. Now this ties to this goddess. This goddess name is Durga, and Durga is symbolized riding a lion. And this represents the sun, guys, which is the Jesuit logo, and also this represents August time frame, which is when this WWE event was going to be happening in the sign of Leo, which is the sun. And as you can see here, not only is this goddess depicted as riding a lion, but she's also depicted as riding a tiger. And this riding a tiger and lion symbolism comes right back to Kamala Harris being the Devi, okay, the goddess in her middle name, and comes right back to this ritual with her replacing and how she became president for 85 minutes. Remember, 85 minutes for Kamala Harris and all these other 85s that are tied to this ritual, as I've already showed you. And again, I showed you that Damar Hamlin's birthday equals 85, March 24th, if you type it out. The Christ equals 85. The Jesuit motto, Gerald Ford's full name, Ford Motor Company, National Football League, all 85. All right. Also, federal government equals 85. And this is what we're talking about. We're talking about our government, which is our presidents and our representatives. So again, this 85, hugely tied, and it all connects to Kamala and this goddess symbolism and the lion. So the lions play in Ford Field, representing the Ford Motor Company, which connects to the Abraham Lincoln and also JFK, who was in a Ford Lincoln. So this Ford name, as I've showed you many times, is what we're going to see over and over. So let's do some measurements, guys. The first thing here that we need to know is that from Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, our current president and vice president, they were born exactly 8,005 days apart. So I want you guys to ask yourselves, what are the absolute chances of that? Kamala Harris has all this connection to the 85, and then her and the president, Joe Biden, who are part of the same, they're the vice president and president of the United States right now. They're born exactly 8,005 days apart. If you drop the 2 zeros, that's 85. Okay, 85. Basically, they're born 85 apart. And I already showed you how big this number is. So another thing is Joe Biden was born on the 324th day of the year. And if you write that out as a date, it's March 24th. I already told you that March 24th is Damar Hamlin's birthday, who collapsed on the field. And March 24th equals 85. And he was knocked out of the, and he was hit and caused to collapse by number 85. Okay. And so these two presidents, Kamala and Joe Biden, being born exactly 8,005 days apart is no coincidence. So that's the first thing. But let's talk about this. So let's talk about the day that Gerald Ford gave the speech that I showed you at the beginning of this video on 10/18/1989. From that day that he gave the speech to this 8/5 date, which is when the WWE is having their event at Ford Field, is exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. Notice the count up, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you take away adding the day, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. And in gematria, guys, Kamala and the place where he gave the speech is West Branch. So from the day he gave the speech in West Branch to this 8/5 day is 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. And West Branch, Iowa equals 1, 2, 3. It also has the 201 like the Jesuit order. But 1, 2, 3 is the same number as the name Kamala, which equals 1, 2, 3. So, again, look at just how perfect this number comes out to be. I also want you guys to notice that this is 33 years and 291 days. And Gerald Ford gave his speech on the 291st day of the year about the first woman president. And this day happens to fall 33 years and 291 days after he gave that speech on the 291st day. Okay? Now, I think that it won't happen this day, guys. I think it will probably happen on the 9th. Or maybe even the 8th. But, I talked about that in my last video. But what I want to point out about this day, the day I think it will actually happen. Now, why do I think that? In my last video, I made a bunch of cases why I believe this. But I want you guys to focus on this 221 number. This 221. This is the number that comes up over and over again in this gematria. Remember, Damar Hamlin, his birthday, March 24th, equals 85 and 221. Now, the day August 9th is the 221 day of the year. Also, Ford Motor Company equals 85 and 221. Also, the reverse of 221 is 122, which is San Francisco, where Kamala Harris was the 27th, was a representative of San Francisco. She was born in Oakland and was a representative of San Francisco. And now, just for more evidence, guys, that this 8/9 date is huge, I want to go to this wrestler. This is a WWE wrestler. His name was literally James Arthur Harris. James Arthur Harris. So he has the same name as Kamala Harris, last name, and his ring name, his stage name that he went by was Kamala. Do you guys see the mockery? Harris and Kamala. Okay, and look when he died. He died on August 9th, 2020. So exactly 3 years before this August 9th date that I'm talking about, the 221 day, and look at what his name equals if you do his middle initial. James A. Harris, 122, 50, and 202. And look, he has the 85. The 85, just like Kamala was president for 85 minutes. And he died on August 9th. What are the chances of that? August 9th. And his name was Kamala Harris, essentially. Now, with that out of the way, let's do a bit of measuring from Gerald Ford's death, because Gerald Ford, who gave the speech about the first woman president, he gave that speech, and then he ended up dying on December 26, 2006. If you measure from his death to the 8/5 day, it's 666. Look at that, 666. It's also 199 months, and 199 is the 46th prime number, as you're going to see here. 199 is the 46th prime, and Joe Biden, who would be replaced, is the 46th president. So very interesting. Now, if you measure to the 8-9 date, you're going to get, once again, you're in the 199 months, which is the 46th prime, tying to Joe Biden. So there's a lot of stuff here that could be said, but just the main ritual here is that from the day he died, Gerald Ford, to the 8-5 date where WWE is holding the event at Ford Field is 666 days. Now, how about we measure from the death of, remember I told you that Chuck Hughes died on the field on October 24th in Detroit, Michigan, okay, in 1971. He died 7 years and 4 days after Kamala Harris's birthday. And if Kamala Harris would become president, she would be the 47th president. Chuck Hughes dies in Michigan 4 days after her 7th birthday, 47, like Kamala would be 47. And he dies in Detroit, Michigan, which has the connection to all the Ford connections, which I already explained is not a good name when it comes to presidents. All right, but anyways, he died on October 24th, 1971. If you measure from that date to 8-5, you get 18913 days. And that is the 215. It's the 2152 prime. And you guys might be like, okay, what does this mean? Well, this is the biggest number tied to this ritual, 21521 or 2152. Okay, the amount of days between Chuck Hughes' death in Detroit, Michigan to this Detroit game is 2152. Why is that important? Because in gematria, guys, the biggest number that's been coming up with Joe Biden, Kamala Harris is the 152. Joe Biden equals 152. Kamala Devi Harris equals 152. Okay? Do you see what I'm showing you? 152 is right in the number from this guy's death in Detroit. Okay? And it's not only, it's 2152, which also ties to Joe Biden, because if you type in Joe Biden's full name, Joseph Robinette Biden, you get 215, which, again, I'm showing you that this number is 215, 215, and 152. Joseph Robinette Biden, 215, and Joe Biden, 152. So it's a perfect ritual. Absolutely perfect to this Detroit day. And remember, this guy died in Detroit with a Ford City, and this wrestling event is happening in Ford Field on this very day, 8-5. And this guy wore the number 85. The guy who died on this day, Chuck Hughes, wore the number 85. And Damar Hamlin, who also collapsed on the field, he was struck down by number 85. And this is where it gets good, guys, because now we're going to take a sneak peek at this whole riddle and how it's tied to our map. So let me show you just how scripted this is. And we're going to go over to Interstate 80. And we're going to look for West Branch, Iowa. Okay? West Branch, Iowa was where Gerald Ford gave his speech about the first woman president. Now, if you follow Interstate 80, which is right here, it comes through Chicago and it goes to Des Moines, and then it cuts in and it goes to Omaha, and then it goes to Lincoln, guys. Lincoln. I just showed you Ford Lincoln and Abraham Lincoln, both tied to presidential deaths, and Gerald Ford talking about the death of a male president and a female president taking over. If you follow I-80, which is where he gives the speech in West Branch right here, if you follow I-80, you're going to go through Omaha, which is also tied to this, but I'm not going to get into this here. Omaha and Lincoln. Now, just to make it even more symbolic, guys, if you follow Interstate 80 all the way across the United States, You're going to go through Wyoming. You're going to go through Nevada, Salt Lake City. You're going to go through Utah, Nevada. And here it is. Here's Interstate 80, guys. Keep following it. Where do we get, guys? We're going to get through Reno. We're going to get through Sacramento. Okay? We're going to keep going. And we're going to get, where are we going to find ourselves? We are going to find ourselves in Oakland, California. Okay, Oakland. Let me find that for you. It's somewhere here. Yeah, Oakland's down here, guys. Oakland, California. Interstate 80 runs directly through it and runs directly into San Francisco. Now, I just showed you that San Francisco has the same numbers as the wrestler Kamala, who had the last name Harris, 122. And remember, the day I'm expecting her to go would be 8-9, which is the 221 day. So Biden would be replaced, something would happen that day, and then she would start this day, the 222 day. But anyways, guys, back to the map. If you follow Interstate 80, and remember, guys, Joe Biden is currently 80 years old, and you're going to run into Kamala Harris's hometown, Oakland. And in Oakland, Interstate 80 turns into 580. And that's the reverse of the 85. And how old is Kamala Harris? She's 58 right now. And that runs directly into her town. And then Interstate 80 runs directly into San Francisco, which is tied to this whole riddle because Kamala Harris was a representative of San Francisco. I also want you guys to notice that out here, very close to where this is all happening, there is a city called Stockton. Stockton, right? We just had this Stockton Rush implode in his submersible. And I believe this is also tied to this. But at any rate, guys, the main ritual here is that Interstate 80, which is how old President Biden is, runs from West Branch, Iowa, where Gerald Ford gave his speech, and runs directly into San Francisco and Oakland, where Kamala is from. And that highway is 58, and Kamala Harris is currently 58. Okay, here's 580. 80 turns into 580, and then turns back into 80. Okay, and this is Kamala Harris's hometown. And this is where she was a representative, San Francisco. So again, let me just show you Interstate 80 again. It runs all the way across, guys. And here's West Branch, Iowa, somewhere in here. And if you go all the way over, you get all the way to Kamala Harris's hometown. So this speech was given essentially, if you follow the road where this speech was given by Gerald Ford, you're going to be led right into Kamala Harris's hometown, and right where she became her first representative in San Francisco. And I just don't think that's a coincidence. I honestly believe it's super scripted like that, and it's perfectly scripted, and what a ritual it is. So again, back to this 85, guys. 85 all over this ritual. And this WWE event coming up seems to be foreshadowing something. Another thing I'd like to mention, guys, is that Henry Ford was the founder of Ford Motor Company. And also, before I get to that, I told you this wrestler named Kamala, and his last name was Harris. He died on August 9th. Well, Gerald Ford, if you go look up Gerald Ford, you're going to see that he became president on August 9th. So again, this date comes up, August 9th. So the wrestler Kamala dies on 8-9. In my last video, I already told you why I think 8-9 could be the day she takes over. And then the guy that gives a speech about the first woman president, he became president himself on 8-9. And just one last riddle, guys, is that the founder of Ford Motor Company, he died on April 7th, 1947, which is the 47. April 7th is 47, and he died in 47. And Kamala Harris would be the 47th president. And the name Henry, I'll show you guys. The name Henry is a derivative is linked to the name Harris. Her last name is Harris. Henry means Harris. Let me see if it comes up. So Harris is a patronymic surname for the Middle English name Harry, a pet form of Henry. So essentially, Henry could be translated to Harris. Do you see the ritual here? Henry Ford, the founder of Ford, which I've already showed you is completely connected to this. His name was Henry, and Harris is where the name Henry comes from. So, and it means home ruler. And again, he died on 4/7, which is Kamala Harris. If she became president, she would be 4/7 president. Okay, guys. Well, I think I've gone through everything here. A huge ritual, huge riddle to come through. If you guys have any other information, please let me know. And as always, thank you for watching. I appreciate you all. Hit the like and subscribe if you like, and share the video. It always helps my channel. So take care. I'll see you guys in the next video.